Now, part 1 of season 6 of Cobra Kai has just came out. Now, I wasn't the biggest Karate Kid fan growing up, but I kind of caught on to it once Cobra Kai came out, and I pretty much binge watched the whole series just so I can catch up to season 6. Now, the thing I've noticed that's been going around a lot outside of the show is people saying, was Daniel the actual villain or was it Johnny? And my answer, I think, is yes. Now, this means perspective. What does that truly even mean? Villain, hero, and is it all a matter of where you're standing to see it? Now, I remember there was this guy, he was a Navy SEAL, and he mentioned that the guy he actually ran up and ended up killing, he thought about in that very moment, if he wasn't born in Afghanistan and the Navy SEAL wasn't born in America, and let's say they just met randomly in Paris and bumped into each other and had a small conversation, this would have been a completely different scenario. But the fact that they were born in these specific places made one an enemy and one a hero, or vice versa, depending on which side, because they could see it as these Americans coming to our country. We have a cause too. So who is really the bad guy? So that's subjective. Now, granted, if you're a terrorist, that's definitely bad. But the point is, going back to Cobra Kai, the big narrative was Daniel LaRusso was the victim of bullying. Cobra Kai was taking over, trying to always harass him. And in the end, he triumphed with his classic crane kick and won the All Valley tournament, went on to win again. And that rest is history. And he became a superstar and got a dealership and made a lot of money. But where Cobra Kai picks up, Johnny's point of view, he's living a not great life. He's broke. He's living in broke down apartments. He's doing odd jobs. He's drunk. He's an alcoholic. He's estranged from his son. He really doesn't have it going on. Now, from that point on, he befriends another child to help him learn self-defense, much the way that he did to Daniel. And it's just ironic because now he's on the other side. So he has this Miyagi-esque relationship with Miguel. Now, you could argue, well, that's not a bad guy. When you really look at it, was he really the victim? And then you learn more about his story, that he came from a broken home. His mom ended up marrying for money to give him a good life, but his stepdad wasn't really there for him. It's more so he was there for him through his mother's means, because that's who his mother married. So when you learn more about this, it's like, dang, he was going through things too, because a lot of the time, not always, and it doesn't excuse behavior, but a lot of the times, a bully usually has worse things going on too, and they transfer it. It's called transference. They project it onto projection onto other people because they don't know how to handle it internally themselves. And a lot of times they pick on someone weaker because in their dynamic, they're the ones who's weaker. But this brings us to the psychological aspect of how we look at this and how the ABC method could play a role in this, as well as some cognitive biases. Because when it comes to the ABC method and cognitive behavioral therapy, we're looking at the A, the antecedent or the activating event, B, the belief, and C, the consequence. So A, the activating event. This is what happened. This means if I was with a person at the store and I see them walk by and I wave at them like, hey, how you doing? And they just kind of give me a quick nod and keep going about their business, I could think, okay, no big deal. That's my belief. They were in a mood to talk, or maybe they're in a rush. So that's all it is. And C, the consequence is when I see them next time, maybe they have more time to talk. We have a good conversation. Or A, same thing happens. B, I think, oh, they think they're better than me. I haven't seen them in years and this is how they act. Now, the next time you see them, you're going to give them a piece of your mind. But the thing is, how you respond is up to you. And that's why this method is so used in cognitive behavior therapy, because it's about reshaping your thoughts. But when you think about this from the side of the show Cobra Kai, or just the Karate Kid universe in general, there's a lot that's going on, the perception of how to act after an event. Because if you look at a case for Johnny, when he saw Ali talking to Daniel back in the first movie, you could assume he thought, oh, he's moving in on my girl. Granted, they weren't together, but he still had a feelings for him, and he has that mentality, that macho mentality. So in his eyes, the activating event was this guy, the stranger I don't know, is moving on my girl, even though she's my ex, and my consequences, I'm going to go address it. And he ended up, getting into a scuffle, and that just set the tone for this long history of back and forth in the Karate Kid universe. So think about how that carries over. Now, if you look at on a case maybe for Daniel, you see it as, okay, well, he came there, he bothered Daniel, kept harassing him. He had his goons chasing him in a skeleton costume. He would always fight him, even when it was his mom. So it's like, this man couldn't get away from him. So if the activating event is these guys are always harassing me, the belief is they don't like me, they want to harm me. Consequence is I'm going to stand up for myself, and these are bad people I'm going to have a problem with. So on both sides, there is a way to look at it prospectively. So when you talk about who's the hero, who's the villain, it's not so black and white. There's a big gray area. You can also look at how Johnny and his relationship with his son got estranged even more after Daniel started working with him, because that's his longtime rival. And you can think from his perspective of, this guy has been beefing with me for years, and now he's working with my son, and my son doesn't like me, but he likes him. From his perspective, that could make Daniel look like the bad guy. So you got to look at both sides to really make a true judgment if you're going to. Now, from the cognitive bias side of things, let's look at confirmation bias. So Daniel, Mr. Miyagi is his hero. That's the legend. That's the person who got him to where he is. And that themes is shown in the show a lot, how big an impact Mr. Miyagi is to him and his family. But he gets to the point where it's so overbearing that it's either Miyagi-Do, his way, or no other. And you can think if Johnny's trying to somewhat collab with him, because throughout the series, they do collab a few times, even though they have a back and forth and fall out and get back together. The biggest theme I notice is it's Miyagi-Do, the good way, or nothing else, which is the bad way. Obviously, Cobra Kai, Johnny makes Eagle Fang, is now Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai, but he still sees what Johnny's doing is not the right way. So he doesn't want to hear more. The offense. Oh no, Miyagi-Do is about defense. So he's not even open to getting a different perspective. So how do you expect someone like Johnny, who you say he's the bad guy or the one who made all the mistakes, to be even receptive to you when you even want to hear him out? Because there's some good things about being offensive, and there's definitely stuff neat about being defensive. It's interesting too about this karate universe is that in other sports like football, basketball, you need both. You can't just be one or the other. You would have a very hard time winning a game if you only play one side of the ball. But basically, going to my main point, that confirmation bias prohibits Daniel from being able to open up and see a different side outside of his own to even give Johnny a chance. And you can argue, like, how can you be a good person or a better, I say better person, if you're not going to be open to other people's opinions? Now, fundamental attribution error. This is when you attribute the behaviors of someone to the personality rather than the situation at hand. For example, let's say you're driving home from work and someone cuts you off over 3 lanes to get off an exit. You're like, oh, you jerk, you a-hole. You're mad, shaking your fist, honking your horn. And you're thinking that person's just not a good driver. They're a bad person. They're inconsiderate of other people's lives. That may be true. Or maybe there's something more to it. Maybe they just got a call that their wife went into labor and they disregarded cutting across 3 lanes because they wanted to get there for the wife. It's something exciting. Maybe it's their first child. Who knows? But that's an example because that technically could have been a great driver, a great person who's very upstanding. But in that moment, the error was the behaviors reflected what was going on then and there. And you see in the themes of the show, Johnny has a lot of this. He's not really a bad guy. He does some bad things, some dumb things. He's very impulsive. He doesn't think. But a lot of times his heart is in the right place. And that doesn't justify things because they say the road to hell was made with good intentions, right? So I don't excuse bad behavior because of naivety or ignorance, but to say that there's some instances where he's put in a certain light, but it's the circumstance. And you bring in John Kreese and the whole Cobra Kai theme of how that shaped him. But he still makes choices himself. But all in all, this show, the first episodes of season 6, I'm mad it's only part 1 right now because I want to see how this plays out because I know this is the final season. So you guys tell me, what do you think with the psychological aspect of how Cobra Kai and this just whole dynamic makes sense? Do you think Daniel's still the hero in this? Or does Johnny have a case? Or do they both have qualities of both sides? Let me know in the comments below. So thanks as always, guys, for tuning in. And remember, get your mind right. And thanks for letting me break it down.